Welcome to the UpLevel Podcast, Carey.
It's so good to be here.
You made it. You made it.
I made it.
You know, I've been sourcing what's the best topic to invite you. And as I've told you, I feel like the exploration of right relationship has your name all over it. So from a personal, like how you've navigated your life personally as a spouse, as a mother, as a business leader, who you are in the coactive world and community, and the work you're doing to bring coactive out into the world and to make CTI a really abundant and well-run home for coactive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like so excited to be to like just get to talk to you, but I think our relationship, since we live in so many different dimensions, will like lend itself so well to this topic. Talk about having multiple relationships with one person, or and so many entities we're connected to simultaneously. So I'm excited to see what we discover.
Well, let's dive right in.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go with our theme here. And how are you currently defining this right relationship?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, as I've been thinking about coming here, I want to mention that like I deeply respect and resonate with Indigenous ways of living, but I want to acknowledge that I am not an Indigenous person. And so I really want to be clear as I talk about how I define this or talk about it, that I'm building off a place of resonance, not lived or learned experience with it. And so just as we define that, as I start to put definition on it, I just want to be really respectful of that.
Thank you for that. There's a beautiful example of being in right relationship right there.
Yeah, totally. Also, like, it's so funny. Part of me wants to start by criticizing it, but it's not really a criticism. But I want to, like, I think I need to unpack the language of it, because I noticed for myself the word right. When I can tap into the spiritual essence of that as it relates to where it comes from, like the capital R rightness of things. But I think for most folks listening to this who might not have experience with right relationship, it can feel like a destination or more of a binary way of being, when really I think right relationship is a process, like an ongoing discovery and ongoing process. So I just want to be clear that I don't think it's a place you arrive in or that you stay in and stick to. It's like you have to fall out of relationship and then find your way back to it. And that's part of getting in right relationship. So
important.
That's kind of another way I hook into this. And then because the word right kind of gives me an allergic reaction, the word that really fits for me is responsible. Like responsible relationship. And I think we've lost connection with relationship altogether. Like we've lost our responsibility to relationship, to ourselves, to each other, to the systems we're a part of, to the larger energetic field, like our universe. I think we're out of touch. And so, when I think about that, I see it everywhere. Like, I think the root and the heart of most of our social, economic, environmental crises is because we're in a relationship crisis. We've lost the thread on deep discovery of self, deep creating from others and finding value in everyone, deep creating of systems that are whole and integral and responsible to everyone's belonging. And, we've lost connection to a collective greater spirit, a collective greater energy. And how to hold all of those simultaneously, I think, is like a huge ask, but I think that's what happens. That's what has you have the feeling of right relationship.
Brilliant.
And those are a few things places just
a little light place to start, and it's absolute brilliance. So, where do we start? If we look at our current state of humanity, where do we start on this path towards, I love that, responsible relationship?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe break down the word. Well, first of all, I think, again, what I'm saying is my belief. So I don't, I think we have to look at our belief systems, and I'm sure there's a group of people who this will resonate with and some who it won't. But I think we need to awaken our consciousness to that relationship is everything. How we relate to everything determines what we will create and how we will experience things. So I think putting relationship at the center, and maybe even owning that we've been out of relationship or have gone asleep to a relationship, is a place to start. And then from there, I think it starts with self. I mean, our leadership model has 5 dimensions, and one of them is leader within. And we say you have to get grounded there, because that's the one that chooses all the other dimensions to go into. And so, how you relate to yourself is how you will relate to your world. And being in relationship with yourself will allow you to then be responsible to your world. What is my part? And how do I want to be created by my world and how I'm experiencing it? Puts you in it. So then you're not just like a bystander or a participant or a follower, you're actually in it and creating it. So I think it starts with the belief that relationship is important, and a relationship at all of those levels, not just this bilateral relationship between people. And it starts with self. There's so much more to go to, but I do think it really starts with, how do I relate to myself? And am I willing to be on a lifelong journey of discovering who I am over and over and over again, and then aligning that to my choices, my interactions, the relationships I'm involved in terms of people, and then the systems I want to participate in and what I want to influence.
When did you make the decision? Can you remember like a pivotal moment when, because you live your life like that, Carey. I've seen you live your life like that. A pivotal moment that shaped that belief and that path that you've been on.
I can remember the first time I chose myself. It's so funny. It's a very, from a very long time ago. It's almost a childhood story, but I remember the first time I chose myself. I was in high school, actually. And I went to my parents and asked them to make a huge change in my life, because I was just going down the wrong path. And I was in high school. I was totally lost. I couldn't find, I had tons of friends, but I didn't belong anywhere. And I was just not, I turned around and was like, this is not me. This is not me. I need more than this. And I begged my parents to send me away to boarding school and repeat my junior year in high school.
Wow.
Because I wanted to go down a different path. And so it was the first time, I feel like that moment saved my life.
Yeah.
It was a sliding door moment, but it set me down the path of trusting myself and being willing to reinvent myself and being willing to know it was a claiming of self that then for the rest of my life, I've been on a journey of deep, learning practices to deepen that and to sustain it and to learn more. And then I do think this is going to sound really cheesy because I represent it, but I think becoming a coach and going through the coactive training. I mean, I learned how to distinguish relationship from just between people to other things and other entities. And I learned powerfully how to create from them and how essential they all are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. Thank you. I'm seeing teenage Carey at that little moment. I mean, bless her, right? And let's hope for young people today to have that level of awareness and hopefully can find ways to really get on the path. It's intuitive. It's this is actually me honoring being in right relationship with myself. We know not everyone will have that advantage, to be able to shape it that way, but that knowing, I'm longing for people to have that knowing.
Yes. It actually wasn't what happened to me. It was the realization that I knew what I wanted and I knew I wasn't who I was being. It's I knew I was changing and that I was willing to fight for that. I was willing to be courageous for it. Yeah. And I think at any stage of life, there's no timing for this. I think it happens when it's supposed to happen. And I urge people to wake up to it, because when we do, then we can shape a more creative, generative world.
Yeah, we need more folks waking up to what does it mean to be in relationship with myself, just period, instead of maybe potentially on autopilot, going through the motions,
Yes.
just going up the ladder, putting food on the table, all respectful things. And are you present to yourself?
Right. Are you present to yourself? Are you willing to self-accept the shadow and the light? I mean, it's sometimes when the us who, love to talk about consciousness and development and human development, it can sound like really like it feels good and it's all good stuff. It's good stuff, but the experience of it requires you to look at your shadow side, the things that you've done or experienced in your life that have been painful, and actually integrate and accept them. Like, have the self-love and acceptance of it, and wake up. Like, wake up to that is like not an easy journey. You have to really want more from this life. You want to create more. You want more, you have to want more wholeness. And I think that's what right relationship starts to call in, is how do you get those things more in integrity? The more we're split off from those aspects of ourselves, the more we're not fully in relationship with ourselves. We're only in relationship with the part we can tolerate, or the part that we quote unquote like, or the part that's accepted. So this is about getting to know that part more. It's about getting to know the whole of you. That's right, quote unquote, right relationship or responsible relationship with self.
And that's the wholeness piece that you're speaking of.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this feels old to me, but I know a lot of people are experiencing this, that they go to work and they have to leave part of themselves at the door.
Yeah.
That's a disintegrated way of living. And eventually that part is wrong or bad, or they have a hard time picking it up when they walk back out the door. Then they walk into their family and they're their, the self was at work. And then it just becomes exhausting. And I think we do that from a very young age psychologically to survive. And our job as older people is to reintegrate all of that stuff and to find ways of being your whole self everywhere.
Let's talk about how the technology of coactive really helps that journey back to wholeness.
Yeah. Well, if you can hold it as a recovery process, like
I love that. Yeah.
I remember one of my elders partnering with me to teach a workshop on integrity. The book Corporate Mystic talks a lot about integrity, and like I was so attached to like getting everything in the right place and sticking it there. And he was like, well, there's no such thing as integrity unless you're out of integrity, because it's the journey to integrity that creates integrity. So it's like I think the journey to right relationship requires us to fall out of relationship with self. And so I think coactive, to answer your question, is this phenomenal technology that helps us recover back to transcend, integrate, and then move forward. Yes, it will help sustain for sure too, but it will always, one of the cornerstones is evoke transformation. It will always call you to the next thing. It will always help point out so that you can then up-level, to use your language.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So that's the wholeness of the technology. I think it helps us recover. I think the other thing I'll just say is, but this is more of a legacy thing, but the founders of Coactive created it because they wanted to help people sustain their transformational journey. They were from the era of Est, and they'd go to these workshops and then they'd like fall off a cliff, and they said, what's the kind of relationship that's required people to be able to continue to live into their transformation? So they created this relationship called coaching with the hope that everyone would have these skills to be able to have relationship between two people be something that helps transformation keep going in ourselves, each other, and the bigger world we're a part of. So all of it is intended to support that.
It's really cool to hear it that way. Like, What else of the origin story of the technology feels important to share in this context that we're exploring?
I don't know if there's anything else from the origin story, but when you said that, the two interesting things showed up for me. One was I love what Henry Kimsey House always says, which is a lot of this work, especially the leadership work, insists on you being more of who you are. Mm-hmm. I know I'm talking a lot about self and relationship in this conversation, which I find fascinating because I'm a huge fan that relationship is these like 3 or 4 dimensions, but he always says we insist you be more of who you are. And again, that just goes back to it helps you get into right relationship with yourself, which then helps you create from all these other dimensions of relationship. And that it's really a relationship framework. We took coaching off the model like years ago, like over a decade ago, because we realized actually what we're teaching is a relationship model. And the coaching is really how do we relate to another to evoke transformation. And the leadership program is how do I create from self? How do I create from other? How do I create from that in a larger system and that bigger field? How is everything an opportunity for me to create from requires me to believe I have to be in relationship with all of it simultaneously. And that when I do that, things are more in integrity.
Let's talk about the bigger systems right now. And let's, what's happening kind of on the world stage and, predominantly in the West. A lot of our listeners, we have global listeners, but folks in the West, from your perspective, what's happening from a systems level with humanity right now? Because what we're not seeing right relationship necessarily, but what do you think is going on?
Yeah. Well, I'll go back to what I said earlier, which is, I think I'm sure there's so much at play, but if I start to feel into the like real heart of it, I call it a relationship crisis. I mean, a huge part of the way I know you've been defining right relationship is talking about getting back into harmony with our natural world, as an example. Well, the heart of our environmental crisis, which is global, like look at what's happening. Is because we've lost relationship with our planet.
Yeah.
We're like, and everyone's at a different phase of this. And I'm not going to say one thing is better than the other, but are we contemplating and integrating every choice we make and including what would happen to the planet or what does the planet want? Or how are we bringing the metaphor and the literal earth into what we're doing? We've lost touch with that.
Yes.
So like, I think that's an easier place to look because it might, I don't know, it's probably as equally controversial as everything else, but then look at how we're relating to each other. I mean, like, I think if I like zoomed up into outer space and I was a bystander, I'd say that we're more interested in separation than we are in unity.
Most definitely.
Which feels contradictory to this much larger frame of what life is and what we're intended for, which I think, is creating so much dis-ease in our physical, mental, emotional being.
And systematic, in our systems and structures and communities and
Yeah. So I could keep going and going. And I mean, so anyway, when I look at any of those major categories, our environment, our social political landscape, I look and go, well, our relationship to it and each other and what we're creating from it is broken. So we're not, I mean, and as it relates to coactive, I was thinking about a few of the things like, imagine if in a major conflict between two nations, we actually sat down and said, okay, here's what I think. Okay, here's what I think. Okay, let me really just get underneath you and understand what you're trying to say. I'm not saying I agree with you. I'm not saying I disagree with you, but like, let me really try to understand. We like went back and forth and did that. I'm like, okay, maybe we still disagree, but what are we aligned around? Okay, from here, what do we want to create? And I know it sounds so basic, but I actually think those basic fundamental ways of relating are what need to shift. We don't have to be in agreement about everything. We're not going to ever get to kumbaya, and that's not where I think we should be. I think there always should be some creative tension, but do we really need to kill each other over the I don't know. That just feels like it feels extreme.
It feels extreme, and then what you're saying, it feels basic to us.
Yeah.
But then let's talk about consciousness and how we are operating on a planet with different levels of consciousness. So we do have consciousness on the planet that's still in that more infancy stage of, kill what I eat and or eat what I kill and consume and extract. And some people would listen to this conversation and be like, oh, it sounds, too lovey-dovey and all of that. What would you say to folks with that type of perspective?
What do I say to folks who think this is too lovey-dovey? I think I'd probably say you're right. Interestingly enough, it's like, you're right, because the reality is it's way more complex than what we're going to be able to even cover in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's not all going to feel good. It's like, this is why like the words sound really good, but the reality of it is a different experience. The experience of transformation will and should have tension in it.
Yeah.
The experience of getting into integrity will require us to look at where we fell short, look at what's not working. Those are, depending on what it is and the scale of it, will feel a certain way that is not lovey-dovey or kumbaya or that's a capacity we all actually need to grow. I actually think a part of our inability to be in right relationship or responsible relationship or even in relationship is because it's so painful to look at where we're not, and closing the gap feels like such a huge job.
And it goes back to where we started, that relationship to self. Like if there's an inability to really look at how am I contributing to this, like maybe creating this chaos and willingness to own that and shift behaviors, like that seems like such a deficit, that ability to do that.
Well, and I think as you're talking, I'm just also realizing you talk a lot about consciousness and like waking up to the thing, and I think it's I think my words for it are is like a commitment to be responsible, meaning my commitment to constantly grow my awareness and understanding of my world so that my world gets bigger and then I can be a more active part in changing it. And so if I don't do that exercise, then my frame is very small and narrow, and there's much less that I can influence or be a part of or see how I'm creating the thing that's happening instead of just criticizing the thing that's happening.
Yeah.
And so, I'd like to see more of that. And the people who are saying this is lovey-dovey, I think I'd also say to them, like, I have more work to do to understand the whole thing. Like, I'm talking to you about it. Like, I have some opinions and ideas, and I'm exploring it as I live as a human. I don't have all the answers to it, and I don't know how to fix the whole thing because I'm one of all of us doing that work. But I can say that in the commitment to this concept, I find that I can tolerate more of the whole reality of something, which gives me a lot more freedom and influence and has me hold a lot more compassion and creativity for what's here and what could be. Versus what I think is like more about what happens is a separation game, a blame game, and like we exhaust ourselves with having to be right versus wrong. We have a narrow focus in a much smaller world and are not actually co-creating or collaborative.
Talk to us a little bit about your journey as a business leader. And maybe specifically, if you can, as a female business leader who's also a mother, like how have you, I know it's like a big question, but like navigating all of that in this walk towards a responsible, right relationship?
Yeah. I will say, like, I am a woman. I am a business leader. I'm a mother. I knew all of those things. And as I step more fully into it, I have been actually shocked at how those things are so hard to put together in our current world and system.
Yeah.
So, like, I am those things, and I didn't know until I really stepped fully into all three of the dimensions of it, like with all my heart and energy, how hard it is to be those three things at the same time. So I think what I'm trying to say is, our system isn't set up for it, which has it feel out of rightness or out of integrity, out of wholeness. I don't believe in the whole you can have it all as those three things, at least in this current system. So if you think about it, I am those three things. I am, there's no like choice. I can own them. I'm discovering who I am as those things. I am relating to people as those three things. Where it falls apart is the system that is not really set up to include all of that, or to have that be the most expressed, or actually extract the value of it, to be honest. It's not set up to extract the value of those three identities. That's the first place I'd start. Like, it's shocking, actually, how disjointed that feels most of the time. And I don't say it like a complaint. I say it more like, ooh, like that's a place we could actually create more for. And I think that's part of why I stay in the game, because I would like to try to keep figuring it out as I'm playing it.
Yeah.
When I think about that, I think, how is my leadership connected to the entity I'm leading, and what's wanting to emerge through those two things? So again, it's like, how do I put myself in relationship with the thing? And I'll say I guess I'm going to say like a few business leader things that are very business leader-y. And I think that they connect to this very spiritual concept. So like 2.5 years ago, we were having a really hard time making day-to-day decisions. And so it was like, okay, what's going on here? Why is it so hard? It's like, well, we don't have any strategic direction. That we were really lacking clear strategy. And so we started to put a lot of emphasis on strategy. We developed a 3-year strategy. We got input from everybody on it. And we started to create goals around it. And all of a sudden we started to perform a little bit better inside of it. It's like, that is an example of where things were not in relationship. They were disjointed or not working well together. So I think it's even, you can apply this spiritual concept to what needs to get oriented to itself and in more responsible relationship. The business needed direction. It needed a strategy. I don't know. That's an example of it.
Yeah. Brilliant.
I think I guess I'll give another example. The pandemic was like a really interesting, pivotal time. So of course, no one expected it.
Yeah.
And it was the orienting event of a lifetime. And I think we noticed, like, okay, we can either relate to this as it's happening to us and everything can be a reaction, or we can relate to it as this is happening for us. How do we want to have it be our co-leader? And so the business was like really struggling because we were delivering all in person, and we never thought we could do our work online. And it was like, what is this co-leader teaching us? And it was like, okay, we stood it up faster than I think we could ever have imagined. And it's better than we ever even dreamed it could be. But if we thought COVID like it was a problem we had to solve, we probably would have just been in a reductionary conversation instead of saying, what is it here to teach us? What is it here to inform us to do? What is it inspiring? And then when it came to people, it was like, how can we be generous to everyone? Because this is like, instead of going, well, the business needs to protect itself and everyone start fighting for themselves, how can we in this transition and this transformation be generous? And in the middle of the pandemic, when we were having a hard time making money, is when we stood up our scholarship program. More people need this work right now. we need to actually open it up. And the inside of that, it's like felt like the most counterproductive thing to do. And it was the first time ever we were successful at standing up our scholarship program and sustaining it. So that's just another few examples of when you create from it versus when you become a victim of it, when you get into relationship with it and see the value in it versus when you resist it or make it wrong or it needs to be right.
It's brilliant. It's reminding me of a passageway from Braiding Sweetgrass. Have you read that book? Robert,
I haven't.
We've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I'm exploring this concept, like I'm devouring this and other books. So what you just said, it's reminding me of this passage. Leaders are the first to offer their gifts. It reminds the whole community that leadership is rooted not in power and authority, but in service and wisdom. What do you think?
It's like what Jimi Hendrix says, which is we have to
bring in some Jimmy.
Yeah, it's like we have to be more interested in the power of love over the love of power. I mean, that's what I heard when you read it.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about love, because love comes up a lot in our work of Coactive, but also when I think of you, in your bio, you're talking about love a lot. So let's talk about love in the context of the workplace.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah.
Isn't it so funny how we've made like love can't belong there? It feels like so wrong for it to be a part of it. It's like there's a right place and a wrong place for love.
It's what you were saying before about that old, like separating my work self from my home self. Like, I mean, we are, give it to the spirit.
Well, okay. It's funny you asked me at the workplace, so I immediately went to. My daughter goes to a school where they have one rule. They call it. You don't have to like everybody, but you have to love everybody.
Oh, I love that.
That's the rule, and I think that's the rule we should apply to every community or system we're a part of. It essentially what it says is we need to respect each other. I don't have to like what you're doing. I don't have to agree with your opinion, but I want to and will respect you. So I think that like that to me is love in the workplace. Is there respect? And then is there responsibility? Am I willing to, I think our definition of responsibility, can I create my world and be created by my world, is a version of love. It's a version of the ultimate respect in action or relationship in action.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know, if you subscribe to a definition of love that's like things feel good and you take care of me and you never leave me and we are, you agree with me all the time, then that's not going to work. But a definition of true, like the capital L love, true love, the kind that will tell you the truth, even if it's painful, the kind that will be courageous for the greater good, the kind that will respect you, even if I disagree with you. That's the kind of love that belongs everywhere. I don't know an organization that, I don't know. I think every organization that's trying to create a coaching culture or trying to shift their culture out of like more bureaucratic ways, I think what they're after actually is love. We don't want to use that word because we don't know how to handle it yet. But I think it's coming.
Yeah. How or where have you been challenged by that aspiration in your own leadership and of leading CTI?
The first classic place I've been challenged with it is people misunderstanding the definition of it and expecting me to make everything feel good. All the time. Like that loving is going to be, I'm going to make the decision you want me to make. And I'm going to make this feel, I'm going to take care of you. No, I'm going to care for you as we all work towards something higher. And I'm going to call you forward into doing your work around it. That's true love. So I think I run into a lot of misunderstanding about what that is.
Mhm.
And I think where I get in trouble is that kind of love will see the possibility in everything. It it will see the possibility and potential in everything, every person, every idea,
Mhm.
every strategy.
Mhm.
And I have to be in the practice of being able to be discerning inside of that, because I'm also on a quest. I also have a business to run. I'm also working in a system that requires me to have specific accountabilities
Mhm.
that require me to make quick decisions in a lot of cases, or big decisions that will have me say, well, that's not a possibility right now, or no, not that right now. And so I can get in trouble there just because my heart's so huge, and I want to explore the possibility of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, where has that huge heart really served you in your business leadership?
Yeah. I think, I mean, I would say this all the time. And when I introduce myself in front of the room in training rooms, it's like, one of the things you should know about me is I love from go. Like, you don't have to like prove yourself to me or do anything to deserve. Like, I will start with love. And I think that's served me in that, I like, really, people will feel seen by me. Sometimes that's actually like a scary thing, because they'll be really seen by someone in power, but in a position of power. But it's served me because I've been able to create relationship with every level of my organization, especially in critical moments where we've needed to have a lot of change management.
Yeah.
I've been willing to get to the front line of it and have a heart while I'm doing it. There's nothing that I'm like above in my position. I don't know. I think that sense of love and respect calls me into like just being closer to it and nurturing it more. And I think people can feel that. I mean, I think our business can feel that, even in moments where I'm having to do really hard things and face hard realities together.
I remember as we navigated the early days of the pandemic and
Yeah.
unfortunately, had to say goodbye to some people, and the way that you led that chapter was so beautiful and elegant, and a model that I know I'm fighting for out in the world in the organizations that I'm doing work in. And when I think of right relationship, it's like, yeah, it's not about perfect. It's not about everything feeling good all the time. But how
Yeah.
do we keep our hearts open and be in relationship while we have to do the hard things together?
That's right. I mean, it's so interesting. I'm curious to know, like, about when we navigated the pandemic, where did you feel right relationship coming through, and where was the heart and love in that?
Mm. Well, I think it was when we had to say goodbye to people. I mean, it was so hard. And there was a beautiful ceremony where those of us who were staying got to honor those who were leaving. I mean,
Yeah,
where does that happen?
exactly. Yeah.
And of course, people still have mixed emotions about it, because we always do with change. But to be able to be transparent about that, and to create a ceremony, essentially a ceremony to acknowledge that this huge transition is happening on an individual level and on a system level. We need more of that in our world, so much more.
Yeah, totally. I'm so, like, that's awesome. Uh, I'm so glad it landed for you. I think it's one of the most epic experiences I've ever had in my professional life.
Me too.
And then I think about, how did we get there? Because it wasn't from 0 to 100. Like, it didn't just, like, everyone didn't just show up and doing that. We actually, I think part of how this is related to right relationship and love is we designed it. And there was a whole week leading up to that moment that had us think through, okay, how are they going to handle this? How are they going to process it? How do we keep them in this conversation and process where probably the tendency is going to be like, leave, like, cut it off, rip the Band-Aid, get me out of here. potentially I need to be angry at you or COVID or the thing and like make it easier to leave. And we created this whole 4-day cadence where we called people into following the process. First, every person had an individual conversation, whether they were staying or going. So there was no like, what's happening to everyone. If I get a conversation, does it mean I'm staying? There's like, everyone gets a personal connection. Everyone gets told what's happening. And then we asked everyone to not talk to each other for a day so that they could go away and process. Then we put people into individual teams so that they could talk about it and process. And then we asked everybody to come together. And so I'm saying that because if you're not willing to be responsible to the whole of it, if you don't have a heart, like if you can't actually, and what I mean by that is if you can't feel it, if you can't let yourself feel it, you can't create that. Imagine if we had just like done it and then said, come to this ceremony. So anyway, I just think that creates a level of intention and process and design that I think leads to that moment. And I'm with you, sister. I'd love to see us be able to do more of that inside of the work and everywhere, quite frankly.
Yeah. Everywhere. All systems, ecosystems need that level of care. And then wholeness, like as you're talking, I'm just seeing wholeness. It's about really acknowledging us as whole humans.
Yeah.
And then the love piece. I mean, it's like, let's do this with tender love and care. And Carey, when I think about where we're at, humanity, it's like we need to slow down.
Yeah.
Because you and the team that was with you that designed that, it was an experience, had to take time out of the brass tacks of the business to put focus on the humans. And you still had to hold the business while that was going on. But we need to slow down so we can actually be aware of how it feels for other parts of the system.
It's interesting. I disagree and don't disagree with you. I just having sat with the 3 elders in our organization for 3 days, moving at elder speed. Yes, we all need, when we slow down, so much more comes through.
So much more.
But I like to say we need to move at the speed of relationship.
Ooh, I like that. What is that?
Because like, I don't want to make slow a rule. Sometimes on your quest, you have to move fast, but can you do it and not lose relationship? The business decision in COVID was so easy. It was like, that was the 30-second decision. Can we spend our time on the relationship, and can we move at the speed of what the relationship needs? We know what the business needs. That's easy. Can we move at the speed of the relationship? I think then the more we deepen our relationships, the more we design alliance with others, the more we get out and put our feet in the grass and respect nature, the more we get connected to our higher power, the faster actually we can move without losing relationship. And the deeper the relationship can inform the action should arise out of right relationship. And so that's where the focus needs to be. And then the rest of it will figure itself out. That's, to me, what integrity or right relationship is.
It's brilliant. As you're on your quest, well, first of all, like, what is your quest, if you're going to articulate it for us?
Oh, I mean, I think I was born to, and I will be on some version of an expression of creating a more whole and responsible world. Right now it's, how can I enable a coactive movement driven by community? Because I think, coaching and leadership are amazing. Those are tenets of it. But I think what's next is, how do we create community? How do we drive a movement through community? And when I say coactive movement, coactive is wholeness and responsibility and love. That's what we are. That's what it is. It is relationship in action. It is all the things we've just been talking about. So right now I'm playing in this arena, and when I'm done with that, there'll be some other expression of contributing to a more whole and responsible world. It's what I've been up to. Like, it just feels like what I came here to do.
Yeah. And that's so for folks who are listening, who maybe haven't had that call yet, like that really clear, oh, this is what I'm here to do.
Mm.
Where do you point them?
Relationship to yourself. Like, well, first of all, I'd say don't worry it or suffer it. Like, it's already there. It is.
Yeah.
Your relationship with yourself and if you desire to know that more, finding all the practices that help you excavate that and committing to it is how you'll know it more. And getting into action and observing yourself in that action. What am I doing here? What do I care about? I mean, but that's the practice. It's like being in action and being in contemplation, but being really committed to knowing yourself. I think that's where I'd put, and just don't make that a job. Make that a joy.
Mm.
I think, I see so many people come through our work and we do like purpose work and it's like, I got to get it. And like, I don't have it. And it becomes a job. And like, if I don't have it, then I can't. And it's like, no, it's already there. Have it be a joy to keep uncovering it and excavating it. Just stay on that path. Just stay committed.
And I love that. And is it always something grand and or serving on a humanity level, our purpose?
Oh, I think purpose is not what you do. Purpose is like the vision of yourself expressed. It's like vision is never the image of it. Vision is the energy of it. So I don't think it's not a job to do. It's a thing to be. It's a way of loving. It's the thing that you care, that you can't help yourself, but want to constantly contribute to or think about. And it's much bigger than a job. It can be expressed in anything and everything you do. That's why I say, for me, it sounds vague and maybe it sounds huge. Whole and responsible world could be with my dog, my husband, and my child.
Yeah.
It is every day. I mean, it is every day. And I'm doing it here at CTI on a much bigger canvas. So no, it's deeply personal. It's deeply personal. The intimacy of our own inner world is so important to be in touch with. And that's where it comes from. It's intimate and personal. And then you get to decide throughout your life how big you want to play with it. But size is not an indication of mattering or how much it matters. That's the wrong equation. If we're going to use the words right and wrong, that's the wrong equation in my mind. Yeah.
I think that's so important. We kicked the season off speaking to a colleague who's an astrologist, and according to the astrology for 2025, this is the year where people uncover their purpose. Like no shit, no kidding. Yeah. And the context you've just shared for us is because there is such a misunderstanding that it needs to be this grandiose, clouds part, rainbows come out, birds fly, bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? It's really, and I love where you're pointing us. Let's get still, let's get intimate with ourselves and listen and notice the things that bring us aliveness.
Yeah.
That bring us wholeness.
I mean, listen, some people's purpose comes from a deep pain. Can you sit in that pain long enough to know it in yourself, to feel it so that you can then long to change it on a bigger scale than just yourself? Can you then take that to your family, or I think often when the ego wants it to be a big job.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying don't go big, like go big or go home. Like, I don't know. But that could be just actually, I sat in my pain long enough to know what I care about and the gap I want to close. That should be bringing us alive. I just want to, I can sound like a masochist sometimes, but sometimes we talk about these things. It feels like, oh, go sit and contemplate what brings you alive. And it's like, oh, I want to go shopping, or like, I want to, help women. That's great.
Yeah.
Where is it born of? Where in the internal landscape of self, where you're owning all of you, is that born from? Because when you get in touch with that, then you'll be able to activate that purpose so powerfully. But when it's sort of a surface level idea because you want to have some direction, it will be good for a minute. it won't last. And the minute you get confronted with the hill you have to climb, you'll go home. And so anyway, that's what my urge would be: get with yourself. And don't rush it. It's already there. That I hear you saying like the astrology is like people are going to come in contact with it. Great. Let the field do some of the work. Just pay attention. Just be willing to see it. It's there. It's always been there.
I hope you hear that, people. Like if you're not yet feeling connected to it, just take Carey's words of wisdom here. That's one of my longings, is for folks to really connect to why they are here, and whatever that expression looks like, that this be a time, it's part of our the passage we're moving through, and it's why it's messy, and there's a lot of chaos, and there's a lot of challenge and polarization, because we're like in the birth canal. We're all waiting to be born to the reason why we're here in this moment in time. And I want that for everybody.
That is like really cool. Like I want that too for people. But like, let's bring it down to reality. Inside of my organization, one of the things we've had to do at a very basic level is role clarity. What are you here to do? And then the other thing we've been having to do is make sure that not everyone's doing all the same jobs. This level does this, this level does this, this level does this. I have to tell you, it's like, I want everyone to know why they're here, because then they can make a contribution, and we can be the most highest, live in the highest potential of ourselves. And I think you don't have to be here. You just have to be here to, push the button on that thing, or you're here to pull the lever on that thing, or you're here to tell that story. Whatever it is, it matters. And I just feel like I want people to know that any reason you are here matters, and we're all here for a reason already. So get clear, or let it come through. Like, it all matters, and it's already here.
Love it. Brilliant. Yeah. Let's make it real. Let's bring role clarity inside organizations. And these are conversations in any ecosystem we're a part of, in a family system, right? And we use the language like, let's design our alliances. Let's really talk about role to role. Who's responsible for what? What does that look like? What are we driving after? And then let's talk person to person about who we will be while we do our work together in these different contexts. Like, how I feel about the coactive relationship model and the designed alliance. I believe that if we could all be operating with these tools, that this is a game friggin' changer.
Right. And so that's where it becomes not just about your relationship to yourself and this purpose you have, but how then it interacts with everybody else and their purpose, and then how that creates something bigger. And those are the relationships that need to be operating. That's how we get in right relationship with the whole thing. Yeah.
So if you're going to give us some final thoughts on this, thank you for all of this wisdom and these brilliant nuggets, Carey. How do you think being in right relationship contributes to collective healing and growth?
I'm going to just go back to a thing I said before, which it's like the process of getting back into right relationship is the thing that creates healing and integration. Like, when I think about, okay, I realize, I'm not living by my values. That's a way I'm not in relationship with myself and integrity. The process of going back and going, what does that cost me? What is it that I actually care about? Let me go practice actually doing that now. Creates so much healing in me. I can do that in a relationship with my husband. Where are we not actually living according to what we said we wanted to be together? What is changing? What is needed now? Let's be in that practice. Creates so much healing. I just feel like it's the recovery.
Yeah.
Be in recovery and be committed to the recovery, and be committed to the dark and the light. Like, be committed to bringing those things together. That is the healing.
Thank you for this. Thank you for being you in the world.
Oh, thanks for the conversation. One of the things I love about Coactive and us and people in our community is that this conversation is over and it's not over. And so I think that's the other thing I wanted to say, which is, I'm excited to listen to what everyone else has to say about right relationship and listen to all the series that you're creating. And I hope that everyone holds this as an ongoing conversation. Let's hold it as an inquiry together. What is right relationship? Am I in it? How do I get back to it? What am I learning about it forever? Because keeping that alive is it. That is it.
So that's the practice. That's the practice. That's how yeah.
I feel so fortunate to have given my voice into this platform of the conversation. And I'm excited to see where the conversation goes for me and listen to all the other people who have to talk about it. And I encourage everybody else to find ways of keeping it going.
Thank you, Carey. Thanks for your leadership. Thanks for holding your quest so close to your heart and being so generous with it, with the world. I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much.